Welcome to Hello Me, It's Me, Vulnerable AF, a podcast hosted by Nikki D. Lovely. That's really just her diary disguised as a podcast, but who cares? You're here for it. Join in as she addresses her self-reflections on life, love, and dating, and gives us all the tea by being more vulnerable than she ever has, with herself and the world. So let's get started in today's episode with Nikki D. Lovely, already in progress.
Welcome to Hello Me, It's Me, Vulnerable as F. I know. Please, don't shoot me. Don't shoot me. I know it's been a while. I know the last time I talked to you was in September. I actually recorded a video with a friend of mine about moving back home and all the other stuff. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm fighting a cold right now. But to be honest with you, coming back home has been a lot. And I think it just weighed heavier on me than I had initially anticipated. And I will say the beautiful thing about healing is realizing that you need a moment and taking those moments. And so I think I needed a moment and I don't want to say that I was putting off the podcast because I've been posting on Threads, I've been posting on TikTok. I've been doing some YouTube. I've been trying to still put myself out there, but I think I may have underestimated my podcast a little bit because thanks to you guys, we are considered a 2025 rising star. I had no clue. We have gained traction, 96% more followers and listeners than all other podcasts that are out there right now. We've gained 96% more traction than any other podcast in 2025 alone. And so I do want to thank you guys for hitting that subscribe button, for coming in and listening. I don't think you understand how much that meant to me. It actually incentivized me to come on here and do another podcast and talk to you because I had kind of pushed this to the bottom until Spotify gave me my stats. And I was like, oh, well, okay then. So here I am, and I can thank you guys. I'll thank you for all of you guys who subscribed and put me in your top 10 and your top 5. All of those things have helped me to come back, and I appreciate that. But let's talk about where I am right now. And as you guys know from my last podcast, I told you I was moving back in with my parents, and it was supposed to be a temporary thing. It initially originated because my initial move here was to get into this house that was a friend of my daughter's, actually. Her mother owned the house and they moved in with her parents. And so they had an open house in California and they wanted to rent it out to somebody that they knew. It wasn't something that they listed. They just, wanted to rent it out to family. Family didn't want it. And so they called me when I was in Louisiana and I was like, are you kidding me? Yeah, of course I would love to move back to California. My lease was up last year, well, the year before last. And I was like, cool, let's do it. So that's what we did. Didn't even think about it because it was a great opportunity to come back, even though I knew it was short term. I knew at the time it was short term, and I still was like, you know what? It's okay because I wanted to be a little bit closer to family. I love California. I love Louisiana, but I didn't have family there. So those are those things that you don't really think about, being away from family. I remember one time in particular, I needed somebody to pick up my daughter and I didn't have anybody to pick her up and I didn't have a car. So it's really hard to get Ubers or Lyfts there. So the principal literally dropped my daughter home from school. So those are the kind of things I had to think about. So I said, you know what? Maybe it will help me to go back home, live for a little while, and then see if something comes up. Now, the only thing that came up when I came back to California was teaching. And teaching is not enough to survive here, especially by myself. And the relationships that I tried to start were all with avoidance. And so that didn't last. And so here I am again by myself, and I'm not upset about it. I've gotten to the point now where I've just learned to just be with who I am and where I am. And honestly, it's a beautiful place to be. But at the same time, it's like, okay, let's just take everything as it comes. One of my problems in my past was living too far in the future or living too far in the past, right? And I will say that I'm not doing either right now. I'm just taking what's at present and I'm just focused on what I have right now. Now, in my olden days, what I would do is I would have like these big goals that I would reach for. And I probably should try to do that now. I should probably write down my 3-year plan and my 5-year plan and all that. But right now, I'm just trying to make it through like right now. I'm really just trying to take everything day by day. And maybe that's something I'll focus on this month. But for now, right now, I'm really trying to get through this year. I'm trying to pay off the debt. I have about $30,000 in credit card debt that I need to get rid of. My goal was to pay off half of that by the time I leave here in June. June is my stopping point. I don't want to be here any longer than that. And I don't care what that means I have to do. If it means I have to move back to Louisiana and get a trailer or buy some land and live out of a van or whatever, that's what the goal is right now. Hopefully it won't come to that, but I'm okay if that's what it comes to because I've gotten to this point now where I realize that home is where my heart is. And I used to think that that line was so cliche. They'd be like, home is where the heart is. But it really is. Home is where your heart is. Like, I feel like you can make a home out of anything. I don't wanna say, like, I feel like I could be homeless on the street and make a home out of that because I know there's a lot of stress that comes with that. But honestly, I feel like if push came to that, that's what I would do. I would try to make the best out of whatever situation I could, and I think that's what you really need. It takes a lot of healing to get to that place where you can literally take any place, be any space, be in a cave, be under a bridge, and still make things work for you in a way that is obviously going to be challenging, but mindset wise, you can survive. All right. Now, let's get into the nitty gritty because I know, that's what we came here for. Let's talk about this real life reset that I'm in right now. This emotional whiplash of moving back home as a grown woman and living with my parents. And I will say that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I think it's because I honestly see my parents trying a little bit. What's funny is one of the promises I made to myself was to never come back here. I remember even talking to my therapist when my therapist was like, well, Nikki, at the end of the day, you'll never be homeless because your parents will always be there for you. And I remember thinking, nope, 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 they may be here, but I refuse to go back. And I think it's because I was putting like a lot of blame on them because of how I grew up. I've gotten to the place where I realize that my parents are human and that they only did as best as they could do at the time. That they had their issues that they were dealing with. So they could not be there emotionally or physically for me when I needed them to because they had other issues that they were dealing with. They had to worry about, making sure that there was food on the table or that they were taking care of the household, at least physically for us. And also, they weren't raised to be as emotionally available for children now as I have tried to be for mine, right? So there had to be the word I'm looking for is forgiveness. There had to be some forgiveness from my space. I had to understand that my parents were only human. And even as a child, even though I needed them to hold me or I needed them at certain times in my life where they weren't there, it wasn't because they didn't want to be. I think it was just more so because they just happened to not be because they were at work or they were doing other things. So I think once I got to that place and being back home has helped me understand that a lot more too. Being back home has been a challenge. The first month was a real challenge. There are many times I was kind of like, okay, forget this. I'm just gonna go ahead and move back to Louisiana. But at the same time, we were kind of waiting for something. Us moving here was in a way hoping my dad was going to get a higher position somewhere else. But that fell through. And so now we're all here. Originally the hope was that he would get the position, leave by January, and then it could possibly be me and the kids and my mom. But now it's like, nope, everybody's here. Everybody's gonna have to stick this through. But me now at least knowing where we're headed or what it is, it's also beneficial to know because that unknowing was also like pause too. Wasn't really looking for jobs outside of California because I was hoping that I could stay in California. But now that I realize, there's a possibility I could still stay here. I don't know. But right now, I can basically do anything again. The world is my oyster once again. Okay. So that's where we are. I'm at home. My dad's trying. I notice he's trying. He's not the same father that I remember as a young child. Now, does he still have some of those same thought processes? Those, I call them like the old school thought processes. Yes, those are still there. However, I do notice that he's at least trying to like incorporate some new school into some of his thinking. I try not to interfere too much and I talk more to my girls about how he was raised more so than talking to him about how he interacts with them because I realize that this is only temporary. And my mother's like, you can't really teach an old dog new tricks. And I don't really think that's true because I find that my father's a highly intelligent man. And one thing I will say about him is he does think about things if you bring them to his attention. The credit that I will give to my father is that if you do bring something to his attention, he will at least like think about it. He may not agree with you, but he will at least think about it. So right now we're just trying to coexist. I'm trying to stay under the radar as much as possible. It's different when you've had your own way of life and then you try to integrate it back into your parents. And I'm trying not to overstep and interfere too much with them. But my father's been very opening and very welcoming. He's been very much like, this is your household too. I want you guys to be comfortable. And I appreciate that from him. I do. I don't think that this transition would have been easy had he not been like that. I think I probably would have moved back to Louisiana a lot sooner. Like as soon as I found out that he wasn't getting the job and moving to another state, I think I would have, because the plan was that if he hadn't found out, I was going to leave by December. But after speaking with him, I was like, maybe the best thing for me to do is stay here, try to see how much money I can obtain to get rid of some of my debt, and then move on to the next thing. The interesting thing is creating new boundaries as an adult instead of a child. Because the first time I was here, which was about 4 years ago, I had a child mentality. I still felt like a child. I wasn't healed. I had probably just started going to therapy in 2018. So I was just starting out, just trying to figure out my voice, just trying to figure out how to stand up for myself. And one of the things I was scared about coming back here was relapsing into that same little girl who wasn't able to speak up for herself, the one who just kind of like cowered and who just went to her room and cried. And I will say the only time that has happened has been when my dad decided to have like a talk, one thing, and it was about like what my future plan was. And when I was sitting in that chair, I became literally this little girl. I didn't feel like I could talk to him. I literally became a 7-year old where I always found it very hard to talk to him. It felt like an interrogation. It wasn't very like easygoing, even though I know it came from a good place. It was just hard. But other than that, that one time, I haven't had that same, like shrinking of myself. I feel like I can be my full self. And I think that's a really good place to be, especially given like, I think the first time I was here, there was a lot of shame. There was a lot of guilt because there was a lot of things that I hadn't cleared out within my own space. And I think a lot of times we learn to avoid things instead of hitting things straight on. And I'm not in that space anymore. I try to just like, if someone's fussing about something, if someone's yelling, I'll just come straight out and say, okay, what's the problem? What is it? Let's talk about it. I don't cower as much unless I'm like, okay, this isn't even worth an argument or a fight. Then I'll ignore it. And I'm okay ignoring it and just like, oh, that's just what that person is. And that's what therapy did to me. My therapist taught me that's not your problem. Even if they have a problem and they're yelling, that's their problem. It becomes your problem the minute you walk into it. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's the problem? How can I help? How can I dissolve this? Right? And so I've learned to pick and choose my battles. I used to run away a lot. Again, that was my avoidant behavior where I would pick the girls up and we would just get up and leave. And we still have those moments where we do our own things, but I'm not like just trying to play save the day and having to feel like I need to scoop them up and take them out. A lot of it is because I've had conversation with them, this is how Nana is, this is how your grandfather is. Just trying to let them know that even if they say a certain thing, it's just because of how they were raised and just getting them to understand them. And then if it's really bad, try to have a conversation with my mom and whatever it could be. But overall, I will say my nervous system is responding a lot differently with my parents. I hate that we're stepping into their space and taking away from them, but I also realize it's also temporary. Like I promise I don't want to take any more space away from them than necessary. I know we need our own space. I know they need their own space, but I also feel like at some points my father is okay because he's developing a relationship with them. And I'm actually glad to see that. I think that's important to me. We never know how long we're gonna have with our parents, and we don't know how long we're gonna have, period. I personally feel it's great to spend as much time with family as possible, and when I say as possible, I mean, like, as much as one can without it affecting them mentally or physically in a negative way. One thing I will say is the difference that this season is teaching me between pride and peace. Because the first time I came here, I had a lot of pride. I had a lot of pride. Pride will keep you stuck. Will keep you stuck. I was so prideful. My dad was a prideful man, like you don't talk about your problems and prideful and avoidance goes together. If nobody's told you, prideful and avoidance goes together. When you are so prideful, you will avoid everything because in your mind, you know everything. You cannot fail, or at least you should not fail. And then that's where the shame comes in. And I had a lot of that. I had a lot of that from being in my past, all of that, right? And again, therapy got me through that. And this go round, I'm finding peace because I've gone through all that. I'm not as prideful as I used to be. I will ask for help if I need it. Asking for help from my parents is a different thing. That's something that probably one of the reasons why I'm back here is like, being able to say, I'm struggling with this. It took a lot for me to say, I have X amount of debt. I still didn't tell them exactly how much debt I had. I told him about the car. There was a car that my daughter got into an accident in, and I have like $8,000 worth of charges on a credit card. So I told him about that. But the pridefulness of having to say, like, this is what I'm in, and it's hard. It's really hard to do things by yourself, especially as a single mom. But at least I'm learning that it's okay. Put your pride to the side and do what you have to do in order to make sure you and your kids are okay. Because at the end of the day, I know this is necessary. I know I need to pay this debt off in order to get to the next place I need to be. I really feel like I only need a year um, to get me there. I think things would be a little bit more easy peasy. Again, I'm not as prideful as I used to be. And I think once you get on the other side of pride, that's where you really find your peace. And that's where I am now. I'm also at the point now where I don't look at coming back home as going backwards. There's no shame in it for me anymore. I talk about it all the time. I talk about it on threads. I talk about it here. I do free sessions on this app called Warmer. If you go on any of my socials, you can actually sign up for a free session or two. Sign up for at least 30 minutes or an hour. You get a free session with me through the Warmer app. And there, I have one that says, "Did you hit rock bottom?" And I talk about how I had to move back in with my parents and start over from scratch. And the first time I had saved up $100,000, and this time I'm trying to get out of the debt because I got in debt because I was trying to pay for the house here in LA, and I gave up my dog sitting business. But I also wanted to experiment a little bit and see if I got myself in the same amount of debt, could I do it again? I wanted to see just how much is possible because I kind of feel like if you've done something once, you should be able to do it again. And you should also be able to have a little bit more resilience, a little bit more confidence the next go around. And so that's what I'm doing right now. It's kind of like a little social experiment for myself, but also like to kind of prove to everyone else, hey, look, this can be done. So I'm planning to show my journey on TikTok. I haven't really posted that much on Threads. I'll probably share my journey a little bit more here too. I pick and choose like where I like to share certain things because every platform isn't really made for everything. But I think this would probably be a good place for me to share this. So I'll share it here as well. But overall, I want to say sometimes healing looks like stability and not independence. And that's kind of what I'm learning from being back at home, right? Like right now, I just need a stable place. That's it. Could I have gone back to Louisiana and found a stable place for about $800 a month? I thought about that. I could have got like a one-bedroom apartment. We could have made it work. We would have figured it out. But I also wanted time to really do a reset and really figure out what's my next calculated move, right? And so if I was to give my future me advice, I want to just say this, and I'm gonna keep it short and simple, and it's this: just keep going, just keep doing what you're doing. Throw the shame away, throw the guilt away, which I don't really feel like you have right now. You're doing good. Just keep focused. It's going to come to you. It's all going to come. It's all going to come working together. Work on that 2-year plan, that 3-year plan, that 5-year plan. Figure out where it is you want to go in the next 2 to 5 years because your kids are going to be gone and you need to figure out what you want to be doing for you. But right now, just focus on you, focus on the kids, focus on the debt, hone in, racehorse it out, and you got it. Enough said. That's probably has to be like the quickest advice to myself that I've ever given. Future me, I mean, me now to future me. Hello me is me, right? Anyway, I'm not gonna hold you up any longer. I appreciate you. I appreciate your patience with me, especially given that, I'm coming in and out every once in a while. You guys only see me here and there. Again, thank you for us making it to 2025 Rising Star. We couldn't have even gotten this far without you. So again, I appreciate you. Make sure you tune back in for next week. I am going to try to be very consistent. If I don't do weekly, I will make sure to do bi-weekly podcasts now. And yeah, until next time, I'll see you guys later. All right, bye.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hello Me, It's Me with Nikki D. Lovely. Just remember, you can't change who you were yesterday, but you can always learn and grow to become a better version of yourself today. So make sure you do the mental work today for the future you tomorrow, and I will see you next week. And in the meantime, make sure that you check me out on my Instagram at Nikki D. Lovely. You can also find me at nikkidlovely.com and check out my book, No F Boys Allowed. Just a little shameless plug. But either way, I will see you guys next time, and thanks again.